Maseches Bava Kama daf Ein Ches Amud Aleph. Ein Ches Amud Aleph in the middle of the page. Let's start with the word lemaiser, not lemaise, but lemaaser. Bava Kama Ein Ches Amud Aleph lemaaser tachas yolif mikodshim. So what are we talking about over here? We entered the sugya of kilaim, meaning an animal, a behema which is kosher, but is not pure. Yeah, not purebred, not pedigree. It's an animal which is a mixed breed of, let's say, Ez and a Se. Yeah, hybrid. Yeah, hybrid is my car. So okay, and that animal is a kid. Is a kid of an goat and a sheep. So it's mixed breed. And then we say that Rava gave us a rule saying that such an animal is not suitable for what? Whenever it says se means only the pure one and not the mixed one. That's what Rava says. There's a dispute in the Rishonim what is the source of Rava. The Gemara actually doesn't say what is Rava's source, and that's another question. Either learns from Pesach, Tosfos says, Rashi says from a different place, Tosfos asks on him. But Rava has his own source to teach me that kilaim is out of the question. And the Gemara asks the question, what did Rava talk about? If Rava speaks about kodshim, we know it from a different place, right? We said show oi, excluding the kilaim. And if you want to tell me it's from meiser, let me restart from lemeiser. Lemeiser. Line starts with the word lemeiser. What does it mean lemeiser? If a person has animals, what does he have to do? Goats or sheep or cows? He has to take, and each one, tenth one, they all go together to the pen to be mitaser. Nichnasim ladir litaser. They go into the into the pen, and he takes each tenth one that goes out becomes a korban to Hashem. The problem is that now we're saying that Meiser, if you want to tell me that Meiser Kilaim is possible from Meiser, and that you learn from Rava's rule, no, we have a different rule. It says Tachas, and it says Tachas also Yolif Mikochim. Look at Rashi if you want. Rashi says Tachas Hashevet. When it comes to the what's his name, to the Meiser, it says Tachas Hashevet, under the staff or under the whip is the Meiser. And by Kochim it says Shivas Yomi Miet Tachas Imoy, under his mother. The baby for the first 7 days, the baby animal, the whatever, the calf, the kid should be under his mother. Tachas Imoy, under his mother 7 days. So we learn Tachas and then Tachas again. The same word twice appears what? And tells me Gzerashava, just like Kochim Kilaim doesn't work. So too by Meiser Kilaim doesn't work. What do you mean Kilaim doesn't work? I'm asking you a question now. What's Meiser? Meiser is a type of korban. Yes. So if you already told me that Kodshim, Kilaim, is disqualified from being Kodshim, why do you have to tell me a new Posuk or Gzerashova from Meiser? That's my question. Get the question? Meiser is just a type of Kodshim. Like, do you have to tell me a special Posuk for Chatas, Osham, Oilo, Shlomim, Toido, I don't know what, each one? The answer is that the Kilaim doesn't even make it to the pen, to the dir, to be mitaser, to be taken meiser from. In other words, had the Torah not told me special posuk about meiser, that meiser does not apply to Kilaim, I would have said, listen, Kilaim, when I have a kid whom I know is Kilaim, I'd put it in the pen. If he came out to be the 10th one, it's a Kabal Mum. There's Kodshim, there's Kedusha, but you don't bring it to the Mizbech. That's what I would have thought. Kamash Malan, that it's completely out of the question. It doesn't even come into the dir, it doesn't even become one of the items of the Meiser at all. B'chlal not. That is what we learn. But now the question on Rava is still a question. You, Rava, you're telling me that there's a general rule. So far, Kodshim has its own rule, its own source. Meiser has its own source. So the Gemara continues, and the Gemara asks the question, Ila B'cho. Maybe you want to learn about B'cho. What's B'cho? B'cho is also Kodshim. But B'cho is different to all other Kodshim. Why? B'cho, as opposed to all other Kodshim, is Kodesh once born. Once born is automatically Kodesh. It's the first male of an animal, and you have to bring it to a korban. And here comes the same question again. The Gemara is telling me that B'cho, if he's Kilaim, if the animal's first baby is a kilaim, not only you will never bring it to the mizbech, that's for sure. That we know already from Oshor Oikesev or Ez Kivolit. What we're learning here is that the kedusha bichlal never applies to it. The kedusha of bechol never applies to it, not even once it's born. You only have to say it's kodosh is a symbolic thing, but really it's kodosh right from the beginning. 1 second. Either bechol, if you want to tell me the bechol is the that's what Rava's rules apply to? No. Ha'avoro yolif mi meiser. We also have Exer Shova from Meiser, it's a train. From Kochim we learn to Meiser. From Meiser we learn to Bechor. Just like Bechor it says Va'avarta kol peter rechem, and by the Meiser it says Kol asher yavot achas hashevet, whichever tenth animal that goes passes under the Rosh Hashanah red whip. So I already know that Bechor has its own source to exclude Kilaim. So what's Rava's rule talking about? So far we're not finding anything. Yes? You get? Yep. Okay. Now, and another question, Inami, that's where we finished off yesterday. Inami, also another question regarding Bechor. Nidme Omarta Loi. Remember, Mr. Nidme? Nidme is really a legal child. Both father and mother are a regular, I don't know, ram and sheep from the same family, but from some reason he looks like somebody else. He has an appearance of a different animal. It's a Nidme. And by Nidme, Amarta Loi. When it comes to Bechor, we're still in Bechor. We say by Bechor, we say that a Bechor which is Nidme doesn't have the halacha of Bechor. You see that all of a sudden out of the cow's womb comes out something that looks more like a goatish kind of look, doesn't look like a cow, looks strange, not like a cow, then Bechor doesn't apply to it, dichtiv, because it says, Ach Bechor show. Bechor show. Yeah, the firstborn of the show. Ad shehu shor ubchoiroi shor. Bechor shor means father and son have to look alike, like a nice big happy family. They have to look exactly the same. Not exactly. They both have to look same species, and therefore a nidme, which looks like a camel, I don't know, like something else, is posul. If so, kilayim mibaye. Remember, nidme is always not as bad as kilayim. So if I already know that show for any bechol has to look like the father, if so, you have to tell me to exclude kilayim. If nidme is disqualified and nidme is not so bad, so kilayim, which is worse, I have to disqualify. Mapitom. So Lemaisa, we remain in a question: why do we need Rava's rule, big rule of binyan av, to tell me that kilayim is always possible? I know each one from his own case. Kochim I know, Meiser I know, Bchor I know. So what's Rava talking about? Ella, finally, ki itmar derove le'inyan Peter Chamor. Rava talks about Peter the donkey. So I'm joking. Peter Chamor, yeah. Peter Chamor means that if one has a donkey, yeah, the donkey has to be redeemed with a se. The firstborn of the Chamor has a kedusha. As funny as it sounds, because yeah, the Chamor is not a kosher animal, and yet it has that kedusha, and that Chamor, yeah, you have to redeem it for a se, and then the se is kodesh. The se goes to the kohen. If you don't redeem it, you have to behead the chamo. Yeah, they do it nowadays. They never behead him, of course. Today is not nice, but you do a pidyon peter chamo with a se. You've seen that they do a beheading. Yeah, to behead the head. To be the pidyon, yeah, they do it all the time. Yeah, Mechevas mitzvahs nediras. So then that's the story of Rove, which means Peter Chamor, which means that if the se, not the Chamor, if the se that you want to redeem the chamor for the se that says kilaim, that ain't gonna work, and that doesn't have a source because it's not the bechor that we spoke about before that goes to the mizbech. Chamor doesn't go to the mizbech. Chamor is redeemed with a se, and the se goes to the kohen. So now that se has to be pure se of both daddy and mommy from the same family. Yeah, both Hasidish or both Litvish, both pure family. Yeah, kedetnan, as we say a Mishnah in Bechoros, en poidin. One's not allowed to be poide, the chamor, the peter chamor. By the way, peter is not Peter. Peter is the one who's poter et harechem, the one who's kilu exempt the rechem, the first one who left the rechem, made it to the first one to come out. Loy be'egel. One's not allowed to redeem the chamor with an egel with a calf because the Torah says se, and se is a goat or a sheep. Yeah, it doesn't say egel. My question was, what's the chiddush? If the Torah says said, then of course it's a say, not an egel. Why does the Mishnah have to tell me that? The Mishnah doesn't tell me don't eat chazir. So I saw in the Torah Tmima, the parish of Torah Tmima, in the Torah, it says that there are the word se is more general. The Gemara says in a different place, se lav dafka. Se doesn't have to be dafka se, which means even if the chamor is worth $100,000 and the se only $10, it's still good. They don't have to be worth exactly the same bichlal. The se is like a symbolic thing. So one would say, if it's lav dafka, maybe the say is lav dafka. Maybe you can also have an egel. Maybe you can have a kaf. And the Torah just gave you an example. Just an example. Times the Mishnah says no. Egel is not good to switch the chamor for an egel and then give the egel, not working. V'lo b'chaya. What's a chaya? A wild animal, the tzvi, ayal, the deer, the hart. Veloy b'shchuta. Oh, let's say you have a shchuta. In other words, you have a se which shechted already, kosher shechted se. Okay, let's redeem the chamor for the shechted se, ready to eat for the kohen. No, it doesn't work. Se has to be alive. Velo b'treifa. Let's say the se is treifa, meaning it's terminally ill. Then no, it's not working. It's not called a good se. Veloy b'kilayim. Yay! V'lo b'kilayim. B'kilayim, no. If you ever said it looks very nice, but really we know the history and the father is an ez and the mother is a kivsa, let's say, not the same species, then that kind of animal is not kosher for pidyon petachamo. How do we know that? Only from Rava. It doesn't have its own local source, it's from Rava's general rule. V'lo b'kvi. Usually kvi is a kind of animal which is sofek chaya, sofek behema. Yeah, it's a sofek whether it's a chaya or behema or both. It's somewhere between Chaim and Behem. I think they say some kind of wildebeest or something in a wild beast, one of the wild oxen like you have in Africa. But they say maybe that's a kvi. Here, kvi means that the se is a mixture of a chaya and a behema. Yeah, it's with father is a chaya, the mother is a behema, or vice versa. So that's the source. So now we know what does Rava's rule. What does that have to do with? It has to do with pidyon peter chamor. Frag the Gemara, ul Rabbi Lozo, the matir bekilayim. Rabbi Lozo allows kilayim to be Petr Chamor. Rabbi Lozo doesn't dance to our flute. Rabbi Lozo says, no, I disagree. And I say that if you want to be poid the Petr Chamor for kilayim, for an animal which is mixed breed, hybrid, is okay. That none says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Lozo matir bekilayim, mipnei shu se. He says, no, it's a se. All the Torah says se. Well, so se means se of kvosim or izim, and it's true. Se kvosim, se izim are both mentioned in the Torah. If so, he says, if you have a mixture of both, doesn't have to be a pure se. It can be a 50% here, 50% there se. So if so, lemahil chasa. So according to Rabbi Lezer, which is a Tana, Rava has to fit into Rabbi Lezer words. You Rava, what kind of halacha does your rule apply to? The only one we found finally after much work was the Pidyon Petach. Look, Rabbi Lezer does not say that Petach requires non-kilayim. So what are you going to do with that? And says the Gemara, Omlech Rabbi Lezer, ki itmar derove letome shenoled min atohor ve'iburoi min atome. We're talking here about eating kosher animals. Rabbi Lezer, according to Rabbi Lezer, we would say that Rava's statement works for a tome, meaning an animal which was born min hatohor, an animal whose mother is tor, the mother is a cow, let's say, viburoi min atome, but she conceived from a tummy. She was conceived from, let's say, it's a cow that had revia with a horse, or a sheep with a pig. Rochel and Chazir, Chazir and Rochel, they are the couple, yeah? So they what? They had a child whose the mother is kosher and the father is not kosher, and here we're coming to say that that's not kosher, that animal is not kosher. Ze alohe. Yeah, you have a sheep born to a sheep, but the father is of dubious character, the father is not kosher. Then we say that not like by people that you go by the mother, but the animals you go by the father too, and therefore that's kilayim. That's kilayim. And that's the kilayim that Rava was coming to exclude from. The kilayim of kosher and treif. What? Of course, if the mother is a sheep, of course. Oh, if it's not a korban for your own supper table, if you have a kid which is half a goat, half a sheep, bevakasha, would be tastes very good, very interesting. Maybe good cheese also, huh? Nachon. a mixture. But lemaisa, we don't say that for eating from treif and kosher, that will come to exclude. And 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. V'doloi Rabbi Yoshua, and that too that is not true according to Rabbi Yeshua. Dear Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yeshua also says that the half kosher, half treif is treif, but he learns it from a different source, not from Rava's source. What does Rabbi Yeshua say? Mise ksovim, mise izim nafkalei. It says se ksovim, two ksovim. Se izim is two izim. Yeah, two izim. So ache oviv keves v'imo kivsa. Both parents have to be the same. 1 second, let me pause and answer. Yosef. Okay, weiter. Frag the Gemara, Ay, v'tohoiro mitmea mi me'abra? Is that actually factually true? That the kosher animal can actually get pregnant, conceive from a tome animal, from a non-kosher animal? Does that actually work? Yeah, is that so? In says the Gemara, yes, the kaimalan, the iabar. Kaimalan, we know that the ibur, and that's going to be a whole story now, but that story is not so difficult. The Abba Mikolut Ke Rabbi Shimon. Welcome to the world of Kolut. Kolut basically means like this. It says like this. If you have an animal which was born from a father cow and a father bull, Lomashane, and the mother cow, all very nice, but he was born with prostoisov klutos, which means, as we all know, every child knows he has to have, an animal has to have three simonim to be kosher, has to be ruminant, and malagera, and also it has to have split hooves, which may be two simonim, split hooves. Let's say the animal was born as a regular cow, but it looks like a camel. What do you mean it looks like a camel? The hooves are not split. Actually, I think the camel is lamashane, like a horse. The split, the hooves is not split. So now the question is this animal kosher or not? Because it only has one siman out of two or three. There's a question of two simonim, three simonim, rishonim. But lemaisa, do we say that this cow that has regular, what do you mean regular, irregular hooves, which are all one piece, they're not split, is it kosher or not? Well, it's a machloikis, and some say that it's kosher. Some say as long as daddy and mommy are kosher, the kid is kosher. However, however, we see, could be, but lamaisa they're kosher from we're going only one generation up, so you have one father, one mother, good. Now, what happens once he grows up, our bacher over here, with a non-split hooves, and he wants to marry a nice girl from a nice family, and he mated with a cow. Now they have a child. Funnily enough, so that now the Tanoim say, and that's a discussion between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yeshua, if now that kolut, that weird kind of cow, that it's not doesn't look kosher exactly, now it had it mated with what? With a regular cow, the child will not be kosher. That child will not be kosher. Even if it has all the simony? Yes. In other words, funnily enough, we don't go by the bocher, we go by the family. Very yichusdik. In other words, the first one who himself is kolut is okay because both father and mother are kosher. But he himself, once he has a child, because that child, even though it looks normal and kosher with all three simonim, because his father is kolut, so now he's not kosher. Interesting. So Mimela, now we have a case. So it's true what you're saying that what? That, oh, Batki Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says that he's not kosher. Rabbi Shimon says that this kolut is not kosher, you can't eat it. Now, according to Rabbi Shimon, you have, let's say, that kolut, which is not kosher, him, as opposed to Rabbi Yehuda, and he now has a wife. Yeah, he's the other one is kosher, the child will not be kosher. And that's what we're talking about. So even if a chazir and a rochel can't really have a baby together, or the sus and the paro, the horse and the cow can't, but these one can. Of course, it's otherwise exactly the same kind of animal. So of course the kolut cow, which only has one defect, the kolut bull and a regular cow, if they have a child, of course she's going to conceive in 9 months, and Mazel Tov will be a Shalom Zocher in 9 months, yeah? But Lamhaisa, yeah, at the end of the day, we have a case of kosher, non-kosher together, and the child is going to be not kosher, because we said kil'ayim, yeah, kil'ayim, according to what we just said, according to Rove And according to Rabbi Yeshua, each one from a different source, to eat kilaim is not kosher. Kilaim of kosher, non-kosher, chazir and a sheep, if it can happen, it sounds like it's not, or a kolut and a non-kolut, can't eat it. Boy rove, okay? New question. Yeah. Okay. Now we come with a fascinating question back to the original story that we had. Remember what we said? How did we get to all this? How did we get here? What's the whole story of a person stealing kochim? We said, I'm not reading now inside, I'm giving an intro, more like a reminder, refresh your memory. Why is it that according to Reb Shimon, there is a reality, there's a massive situation in which, let's say, someone stole a korban from someone, yeah, and he's chayev. It's a korban. V'gunav mi beis, and it's chayev 4 and 5. It says v'gunav mi beis ha'ish v'lo mi beis ha'ekdesh. I really stole it from Ekdesh. When you have your animal jumping around in your dining room and it really belongs to Ekdesh, don't come to me crying that I stole it from you. Of course, I have to return it, but I don't have to return 4 and 5 if I shechted it because it belongs to Ekdesh, not to you. Says Rab Shimon, achrayes megalim achrayut. Yeah, as we have these signs all over town. You have to know that if the person said arei olai, if the owner said I am obligated to bring a korban whatsoever, right? And he already was mafrish. He took one animal, and that was supposed to be the one to the korban designated. You, Mr. Ganav, stole it from me. So now I have to replenish and whoop, bring another one. I have to bring another one instead. Dovo, gorum lemomoin, kemomoin, dami. Something that causes me to pay money as me being accountable is like money. So it's as if you stole it from me, and therefore if you shechted, please pay 4 or 5. Says the Gemara now a brilliant question. Boyrov, actually also applies to Loch Lamaisa. Boyrov, Hare alai oilo. The person said Hare alai oilo. He said it's upon me, incumbent upon me to bring an oilo, which is achrayis. The Ife show this guy is a rich guy, generous guy. He wanted to bring and actually designated, put in the corner a show. Wow, a big bull worth thousands, and that's going to be the korban. Uba acher vignovoi, apa. Another guy came and stole that big bull. Mipota gonav nafshei be keves lerabonon the oilas haoif lerablozo ben Azariah. Let's listen to the guy of what he has to say. I stole a bull from you. That bull was supposed to be for a korban. Why are you screaming at me and fetching at me? You say, now I have to bring a new one. Well, all you have to bring possibly is a cheaper animal. When you said Hare Olai Oilo, then according to Rabbanon in the Mishnah in Menachos, if a person says some oilo, every gabbai knows and every shulgoer knows that what's the minimum donation. And that's a whole bunch of Mishnayos in Menachos. When you say Hare Alai XYZ, you said Hare Alai Oilo. I'm making a donation to Beis Tzvi, donation to the shul, donation to wherever, the kupa. What's the minimum donation, if he didn't say otherwise? Rabbanon say the minimum is keves, you have to bring a sheep. Ablauz ben Azariah says you have to bring off, you have to bring a pigeon that goes to the Mizbeach. Why? Because really the Gemara says in the place of Rabbanon, keves, believe it or not, I don't believe it, was cheaper than the oaf. Yeah. Maybe in Australia it's like that. Mashen can buy Rablazor, the off was cheaper. In other words, each one says minimum donation. Now listen to the Ganav. I'm the Ganav's lawyer. I'm the Ganav's 10 Rabbani. My client over here did not actually steal anything from the real ownership of Mr. Plaintiff. Mr. Plaintiff is now screaming at us for what? For causing him to replenish and having to pay a new one. Well, that new one, mister, who told you to be so generous? The new one, you can be yoitze with a minimum of keves. My client will give you back a keves, a sheep, and please keep quiet. Can he say that? That's a good one. Says the Gemara. Titnan. It says in the Mishnah in Menachos. Titnan. Hare alai oilo. A person said, Hare alai oilo. I'm obligating myself to bring an oilo. Oilo what? Hare alai oilo. Yovi keves, says Tanakama. Bring a sheep. That's the minimum donation sheep. Ablazo ben Azariah oimer yovi tor or ben yoino. Ablazo ben Azariah says either a tor, ben yoino, a pigeon, a dove, whatever that is. Yeah, a turtle dove. B'chol oifen mai. What's going to be the story over here regarding the Ganav? Look at the Gemara's two sides. Mi amrinan, shall we say, the end of the first one lan. Mi amrinan shem oilo kabil iluyei. The original owner accepted upon himself to give an oilo. So now you, Mr. Owner, it's very nice. You're originally so generous. Wow, so choshuv, so nice. But lamaisa, you accepted oilo. Me'ikir adin, you can bring a tiny, cute little two birds. That's all. Therefore, I, the Ganev, you say, I caused you a new expense. As far as I'm concerned, that can be your new expense. And I'll give you two turtle doves or two this or the money that they're worth, 200 shekels, and go home. Oy Dilma, or maybe, we have another tzad, Matzi Omole, maybe the owner can tell the Ganif, Ana mitzvah muvchar, mitzvah min hamuvchar ba'ina lemebad. I want to do a mitzvah min hamuvchar. You still stole from me the level of mitzvah that I wanted to perform. I wanted to do the mitzvah min hamuvchar. Yeah, min hamuvchar, the best of the best. Quick, quick, quick. I'll get to the Mishnah and then I'll hear a question. Answers the Gemara, Basal Dibai, Odo Pashto. After the question came the answer, da answer. Gonav Pota Atzma Bekeves Lerabonon, Beoilas, Oif, Lobolozo Benazaria. Yes, the Ganav may exempt himself with a minimum. What's minimum? Depends who you ask. Rabbanon Blezer Benazaria. At the end of the day, it's nice you want to do a mitzvah and a muvchar, but it's not a loss that I caused you. It was your choice. Yeah? Lamaisa, make your din, you can bring a kevis, you bring a birdie bird. Therefore, I'll give you birdie bird. He learns it. Ravacha Bareda Ravika learns it outright from a statement of Rava. I don't know why Rava is a matni, but that's another question. A person said oilo, and he designated a show on the side. Oh, that's going to be the oilo. Yene Ganev stole the bull. Potar atzmoi bekevis lerabonon. According to Rabbanon, you can bring back a sheep. According to Rabbanon, you can bring back the shtei toirim, the two birds. Why? Because me'ikar adin, you're claiming I didn't steal from you. I caused you to pay a new one. To pay a new one, you have high standards. That's nice. But from Beis Hamikdash standards, mitzad their demand on you, they only demand a two birdie thing or one kevis, and that's good enough. And that's what my client, the Ganav, will give you back. Oh, he's standing in line. If there's a queue, yes. Before we continue, I just want to point out, in this case, it's not only 4 and 5, yeah, it's also the actual Keren. In other words, not only the Shechita is an issue, yeah, which he would have to pay 4 and 5 if he shechted, but over here we're talking even about the Keren itself. Even the Keren itself, I can say, that let's say there's a Keren here, the actual animal. I did not steal a cow from you. I don't owe you a cow. The only reason why I owe you something because I caused you to have a hole in your pocket and have to pay a new one to Beis Hamikdash. But that new thing, what's the new thing? Says the lawyer. Tell me. It's just two little doves, according to Abelezer. So that's all the Ganev has to pay, not even the Keren. And thank you for pointing it out. Why I'm excited by what you said. Up until now, the only difference between Hekdesh and non-Hekdesh was 4 and 5. Here it actually affects the Keren. And therefore, my friends, thank you. Now I have to continue now. Say the Achronim. There's a discussion. The Achronim, listen to this. Let's say Tim McKenzie now. Yeah, and it's good to record it. Yeah, Tim McKenzie. Hi, where's Tim? So now he gave me. He deposited in my hands. He trusts me, even though I'm Jewish. And now and somebody stole, yeah, somebody stole the $100. He gave me something worth $100. What? A watch. He gave me his $100 watch to watch, and I'm watching his $100 watch. But Tim McKenzie is nice. I'm dafka saying a goy because when a Ganav stole it from me, a Ganav stole Tim McKenzie's watch, which is in my not possession, under my shmire. So now, wow, Tim, I'm so sorry. Somebody stole the watch from me. Tim is whatever, from some reason becomes generous, and he says, "Okay, you can pay me just $50. You're a nice guy. Give me only $50." I Tim doesn't care about shomer chinam. Whatever Tim, yeah, lo mishane. So I'm shomer sochar. Tim says you can give me a $50 watch. Go buy one. $50 is good enough for me. The Ganav now comes clean. What does the Ganav have to give me? Possibly 50. Once Tim agreed that I can only be paid 50, so he didn't steal my watch, and the stealing from the guy is also to steal from a guy, but the Eved, it's kilo lost from his hands already. So now the only chiyuv he has to pay me because I'm stuck against Tim. But if Tim said that 50 is okay, so some achroinim say, although it's a machlokes, maybe the Ganav can pay me now only 50, and they base themselves on our Gemara. They base themselves on our Gemara. Obviously, Obviously not. Then there's no question. Of course, he has to pay me 100. That's not Mishnah. Come on, guys. We have to continue. No much time. We're only starting today's Amud now. Says the Mishnah. Mechoroi chutz me'echad mimea shaboy. The person, the Mishnah, daf ein ches Amud beis, a few lines from the narrow, from the wide lines. Mishnah. Mechoroi chutz me'echad mimea shaboy. Let's say a person sold, the Ganav sold the animal, but he left for himself 100. Yeah? One chelka mea, he says, belongs to me. Let's say the person, although we're going to have four different cases here, let's say I sell you the sheep, but I say, listen. Yeah, I sell you the sheep, but the liver, I love sheep liver. That's I'm dying for that. So you get the whole thing, but the liver I keep for myself. So when you go and you shecht it, I'm the Ganav. And you bought from me, when you go and you shecht it, mahadrin van mahadrin, I'm telling you now, when I sell it, that I'm leaving behind the liver for myself. Okay? So let's say I left for myself 1/100th of the animal. Oy, shoy soloy boy shutfus. Or let's say, as we already saw before, by the brother and other brothers, let's say there was partnership. The Ganav himself was a partner with others in the animal and he stole it from his partners, which means that the theft is only partial, because part of the animal belongs to him. Ashoichet v'nisnablo beyodoi. Now we're talking about shchita. A person shechted the Ganav and he meant well. He wanted to shecht properly, and oops, he flunked it. Didn't get siyata dishmaya, the thief. Became a nevela in his hands. So he meant well, but it's nevela. Is he chayev to pay 4 and 5 if it's nevela? Yes? No way. Or Shimon and Rabbanan both agree to that? Yes, they both agree to that. Both in the Kamner Shimon say if it's complete nevela, the shchita is nicht kashchita, treif. Even the small Mesortiju would not eat that. So of course he does not have to pay 4 and 5. A noicher. Noicher is one who actually slashed the animal from the nose all the way to the back. He like beheaded it in a funny way. That's one way to explain noicher. The me'aker. Me'aker means that he basically plucked out the simonim, the air pipe and the food pipe, the whatever it's called, esophagus, whatever, esophagus. He plucked it out. The kids are non-kosher shchita at all. Shalom tishlume kefel, ve'enu shalom tishlume abo v'chamisha. He does not pay 4 and 5 on all these cases. So first of all, when it comes to selling, interestingly, let's look at the first case because that's what we're going to discuss now. If Mr. Ganev sold, what did he sell? He sold almost the entire animal, but he left 1% to himself. Then he's not chayev to pay the owner above a chamisha. So your cynical comment from yesterday, Baruch, would be very fitting here. The Ganav wants to consult with his rabbi, the rabbi of the Ganovim. How can I sell it and become potter from paying 4 and 5? Here's your advice, says the Toin Rabboni to the Ganav. You can sell the whole thing except for 1%, which stays by you, and then you're not chayiv on above a chamisha. Don't worry, he'll whatever burn somewhere. Says the Gemara, "My chutz me'echad mimer sheboy." When we say that if 1/100th was left behind, what kind of 1/100th? I told you, let's say the liver, but let's say left behind just the tail of the cow, or let's say just left behind a tuft of hair. Let's say left behind just the bones. He likes the bones. Is that also called leaving behind? Is that still called a non-complete, incomplete mechira? Yes or no? Says the Gemara, two opinions, which will evolve into four. Omar Rav, chutz midover hanita imoy b'shchita. Rav says like this: it's only called an incomplete mechira if you left behind something that requires shchita. In other words, flesh. Yeah, the entire flesh of the animal, the meat of the animal, each and every ounce of the animal's meat requires shchita. You can't have one crumb of meat which wasn't shechted. However, when it comes to the horns, or the hooves, or the wool, or the anything, or the bones, all these things that don't require shchita, right? You're allowed to benefit from the wool of an animal which wasn't shechted. Same thing, you can make a shofar, you can make whatever, even shofar it works, yeah? Or the hooves or anything, no problem. And therefore, nita imoy b'shchita, only, we're going to see the reason later why. A nita imoy b'shchita, if you left meat behind, as we say, the Pasuk says in America, where's the beef? Yeah, for Pasuk. Yeah, in other words, when it comes to beef, to real basar, if you left that behind, that is called that you left something intrinsic and important. The Levi Omar. Levi says no. Chutz mi gizoiseho. Levi says no. Even if you left behind some of the wool, you left behind something which is not edible. You told the guy, listen, you're gonna get the entire animal to eat, yeah, and I'm gonna leave it for myself, and I never sold you, says the Ganav to the client. I'm leaving behind the wool I want. I want a nice new sweater for the winter. It's very cold. So then what? So that too is called leaving behind. Even though the wool is less important and is not connected to shchita, leaving that behind is bad enough, so to speak, is incomplete enough, and it's not called a complete mechira, and therefore you don't have to pay. You don't pay 4 and 5 because it's called that you left something behind. Remember, incomplete mechira means it doesn't have to pay 4 or 5. Now we're going to see a brisa mit 4 different opinions, and I even have a chart. What? No, I don't see a connection. Except for less and less, I don't see much connection. No, 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 no. Let's develop more, and then you'll see that it's not connected. V'chen tani b'mesnisa, says the brisa. Chutz migizosea. One brisa helps, who helps Levi, even if he just left behind the giza, the tzemer, like ligzos, to shear the shorn part. That's good enough to be called an incomplete mechira. Meisivi. Now we're going to have a strong attack on Rav. Listen to all different 3 opinions, which will evolve into 4. Mechora chutz miyodo chutz miraglo. He sold it except for the hand, except for the foot. You know that always Chazal called the yad is the front leg, yeah, or the hind leg. Chutz mikan. These are meat, the meat of the animal, yeah. That's what make gale from the feet. Chutz mikarna. You left behind the horn. Chutz migizosea. Anything. And Mashal Tashlum Arba V'Chamisha. That's Tanakama. That's exactly like Levi. Levi says anything was left behind, even the hoof, even the shmoof, anything was left behind. It's not called a complete thing, and therefore what? You don't have to pay Arba V'Chamisha. The Mechir is incomplete. That is the Tanakama, which is a good friend of the Amoiro Levi. Rabbi Oimer, דובר המעכב בשחיטה אין משלם תשלומי 4 ו5, ושאין מעכב בשחיטה משלם תשלומי 4 ו5. What's מעכב בשחיטה? So there is a word in English called vital organs, and it's not exactly what we're talking about over here. There are many areas, many organs in the animal which make it treif, and some are not. For example, the animal is missing really, or is very sick in one of the vital organs, or not only vital organs, which in medicine they call just, I don't know, the heart and the lungs and the brains maybe. Let's say the animal is missing the entire leg, all the way up to the hip, all the way to the torso. It's missing a leg. It's not going to live long. Yeah, even, I mean, if you manage to make it live, it's a different story, but it can't function like that for too long if it's not taken care of. It's seriously handicapped, so that animal is considered a strafe. So let's say now, as opposed to, let's say the animal is missing the lower part of the leg, yeah, of each leg, the hands, as we saw, all the feet, yadayim raglaim, that it can survive for long. It's limping, it's uncomfortable, it's not nice, but lamaisa, it's not treifa. Says Rabbi, only organs that are vital enough that without them it's called treif, and therefore connected to shchita. Why do we have to connect to shchita? Remember the brothers? Tvicha mechira. Any organ that's connected to the kashrus of the animal, which is to do with shchita, also is to do with mechira. So if I left behind the stomach, you can get everything, but I love the kishkas. The entire kishkas I want to leave for myself. That says, Rebbe, that's not called a mechira, because I left behind something that kashrus wise is very vital. But if I said you get everything, and I'm leaving behind the 4 or 1 or 2 bottom of the leg, not the hoofs, but the bottom part of the legs. That's not called part that's to do with shchita or treifa. It can survive without it, halachically. It's still called non-treif, and therefore, if that was left behind, that is called what? That is called a complete sale. The standard of complete or incomplete sale is the same standard of what's called a behemoth treifa or not treifa. That's opinion number 2. No questions now. Everything will repeat itself anyways. Opinion number 3. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar omer chutz mikarno Rabbi Shimon Elazar omer chutz mikarno ein meshalem tashlum arba v'chamisha. Says Rabbi Shimon Elazar, if you left the meat, the flesh, even 1 ounce, one item, one iota, no, that's not complete. Now he's talking and differentiating between the hooves, and excuse the hooves and the horns and the wool. Chutz mikarna. If you say I want to leave the karnaim behind, I'm thinking of Rosh Hashanah. Says the Ganav. The Ganav says, I'm selling you everything, but the karnaim, the horns, I want to leave for myself. Okay. So that's called Ein Mashal Tishlum Bava Chamisha. That's called a significant, important part. And leaving that behind means that the Mechira is incomplete, right? And therefore, we say, aha, it's not complete, you don't have to pay 4 or 5. Chutz migizoy sell, but except for the wool is less important than the horn. Why less important? Because it doesn't stay with the animal the entire life, right? The wool, you shear it once a year, right? As opposed to the horn, it stays there all the time. If you left behind just the wool, you don't pay for, and if you let you pay 4 and 5. Leaving behind the wool is not called leaving something important. It's still called a complete mechira, even though the wool is left behind, and therefore what? Yimeshalom above chamisha. Correct the Gemara. Now, if you noticed, Rav remains no opinion like Rav. No opinion said that the entire flesh has to be sold and nothing but the flesh. Nobody said that. Let's see how the Gemara goes over. Bishlam Levi Kitanakama. Levi is like Tanakama. Levi found his friend, the big daddy, Tanakama. What did Tanakama say? Tanakama said anything. The most Mekel or Machmir, depends who you ask, yeah? Levi is like Tanakama. Whether you left behind one hair, Giza, Karna, anything, if you left behind, it's not called that you're a thief. We're Mekel with a thief. It's not called a thief. It's not a complete Mechira. You don't have to pay 4 or 5. Ela le Rav, Keman. Who is Rav like? Rav is not like anybody. Why? What did we say? Rav said all the meat, yes, and anything that's not the meat is not considered. Nobody said that. Either there's the one, Reb Shimon Lazar differentiate between keren yes and wool no. And Rebbe said what? Even within the meat, depends. If the meat is choshuv, vital, then yes. But the unimportant parts, I don't know, a bit of the back somewhere, a bit of the leg, no. So nobody actually said like Rav. Rav remains sourceless, and Levi has a source, which is really bad. Amri, they say, Rav de Omar Kihatana. Rav has a source, a new fourth opinion. The Tanya of Shimon Elazar Oimer, another opinion on behalf of Reb Shimon ben Elazar. There are two opinions quoting Reb Shimon Elazar as saying different things. Yeah, Reb Shimon Elazar Oimer. Mechoro, he sold, the Ganav sold the animal chutz miyodo v'chutz meraglo, except for leaving behind an unimportant part of the meat, which does not, is not called a vital organ treifa-wise, the hand or the feet. And it doesn't have to pay 4 or 5. Why? Any part of meat requires shchita. You can't have the gala, the leg, without shchita, chas v'shalom. So then, if you left that behind, that's choshuv. You don't pay 4 or 5. Chutz mikana, chutz migizosea, parts that are not flesh, such as the horns or the sheep or the wool, very nice. So Baruch Hashem, Rav has a fourth opinion that supports Rav, and I have a chart already in the computer waiting for you to enjoy over the weekend. Yeah? So we have 4 opinions, and that's very nice. What's the source of their machalokes? Tanakama Soval, Tanakama thinks like this. V'tvochoy kuloi ba'inan. Remember? What did we say? Tanakama says tvicha requires everything, because just like tvicha has to be complete, and if I am a partner, remember, then the tvicha is incomplete. That's not good. Tvicha is all encompassing for the entire animal. Umechoroi kulo ba'inan too. Tvocha mechoroi are two brothers, and therefore they both have to be complete. And therefore, if the mechira was incomplete, the mechira was even missing of one tuft of hair, that's not called a mechira. That's the Nakama, followed by Levi. The Rebbe Sova, what does Rebbe say? Rebbe Sova, tvochoy. Rebbe says, excuse me, listen to the words. Tvochoy applies to what? Applies to wool, mapitom. not only doesn't apply to wool, tvocha doesn't really apply to the feet and to, to the non-vital organs. Why? Of course you can't eat them. Says Rebbe, midi dehavi betvicha, la puki midi delavi betvicha, umechor dumi detvicha, which means just like in order to be able to enable the animal to be kosher, what are the two requirements in halacha? The two requirements that go hand in hand. The animal has to be intact. What's called intact? It's okay if it's missing a toe, if it's missing the lower part, and then it's still kosher to be shechted. Very good, very good. Shchita applies to any animal that's not treif. Shchita will not help an animal that is treif. Says Rebbe, that's the connection. So the vital organs that whose lack causes it to be treifa, the stomach, the inside, a lot of areas there, or the high, the hips, those things are should be also included in the mechira, just like they're connected to the kashrus of the tvicha. Opinion number three now. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Sovar Karna Deloy. Now, Reb Shimon ben Elazar does not connect between Tvicha and Mechira. He says his own svara, nothing to do with Tvicha Mechira. He's talking now about Mechira alone. The psychology, the logic of Mechira. Karna Deloy Lemig Zakaima Havi Shiur. The keren, the horn of the animal, is not meant to be shorn, not meant to be cut off. Some people do it for shofar, maybe goyim also do it for something beseder, but it's not normally done on a regular basis. Mimela, it grows with the animals and it dies with the animal throughout its life, and therefore that's an intrinsic part. You left that behind. I don't care about tvicha. Leave tvicha alone. We're talking here mechira, and therefore the mechira is incomplete if you left behind the keren, the horn, and therefore you do not have to pay 4 and 5. But gizoisea de lemegas kaimi. Gizoisea are all the time short. It's like the human hair. Human hair, you go to the barber every once in a while. Look, I go too often. Yeah, yes, the loy havishu. So if you left behind the hair, the wool, that's not called leaving behind something important. And therefore you still have to pay 4 and 5 because all you left behind, no, is the wool. That's the first version of Shlozo. The second version, now the other version of Shimon Lazo, he says what? He says like Rav. He says like Rav, and he says all the flesh has to be included, and none of the non-flesh has to be included. Sova, what does he think? Yoda v'raglov the tzrichit tvicha. Of course, Yoda v'raglov not as important for the kashrus, but not in order to start the kashrus, the process, but to finish the process, of course. Bigger maratzis. A person would tell you, I have an animal not shechted, a treifa, somebody banged it on the hand, Mackenzie. All I'm eating is the is the bottom part, just the legs and the hands. Of course it's shtuyot, of course you need tvicha. Yeah. So, yeah. Avi shiur. So therefore, all parts of the flesh all require shiur. In other words, if anything was left behind, you don't pay 4 and 5. You left behind something. Rebbe's back to, excuse me, Rav, with Obshum Lozo, they are back to Tvicha Mechira together. Just like Tvicha applies to every ounce and every molecule of meat, so to the Mechira has to apply to all parts of meat. But Karnea v'gizosea, the Lord Tzricha Tvicha, Lo Avishiu. But the parts which are non-edible, yeah, the Karnaim, the Gizos, you're allowed to benefit from that. You think every sweater you wear made in China, yeah, or even talis, you think the sheep was kosher shechted? How do you know? It wasn't shechted at all. And even if yes, it was banged in the hand. Lokashu, yeah? And therefore, such those parts which are mamish not connected to tvicha, you can leave them behind and still be chayv or bava chamisha. It's still called complete, even without the wool or the horns. Kasha d'obshim lozo, d'obshim lozo. Now, question on obshim lozo, on obshim lozo. You said first of all he says one thing, then you said he said another thing, right? And so the Gemara, Trei Tanoi, Valibad obshim lozo. Two Tanoim. The two Tanoim, I promise you, not trying to be sound nasty, if people would have to go over what I said today, I'm sure you'd hear more than one version. Lahavdil, I'm not saying yet. In other words, you have one, the Reb Shimon Lazar gave a shiur, and there are different versions about what he said in the shiur. And therefore, that's accepted in the Mishnah. We have two opinions of his. So altogether, we have four opinions, and one of them is followed by Rav, and one of them followed by Levi, and the winner is Rav. I'm saying lots of things. Yeah. Yep. No, you can. You're not allowed to make from trade. The first Gemara in Shabbos Daf Kuf Ches or something like that. It says over there that you're allowed to make tefillin and mezuzahs from animals that were not shechted. In other words, you're not allowed to make it from the skin of a pig, chas shalom, but you're allowed to make it from the flesh of an animal which was not properly shechted. Why? Says the Gemara, because this one is the good min. It says min hamoiso beficha, min hamuto beficha. It has to be species you're allowed to eat. Even though this particular one wasn't shechted, it's the Gemara at the beginning of Shmona Shotzim in Tractate Sabbath. A Shabbos, a good Shabbos for everybody. Atzlocho brocho. I'm so sorry the Zoom's not working, and maybe we'll try to use Google Meet or Google Doc or Google something. Atzlocho Abba, shkoich, and a very, very good Shabbos.